Have you ever realized how much similarities there are between the Communist International theme song and then all the gospel songs? You know, they are built from exactly same chord progression and licks. It's kind of interesting. Hey, today we are talking about a Soviet-made communist camera. This is a Kiev 60 and I have now used this camera long enough to tell you a little bit about it. I've also dressed appropriately. I have a Soviet Union ice hockey team promo shirt. My wife told me that this is so bad ugly that never wear it in public, so I promised not to do that. This promo shirt is from year 86. Now this camera was also built in 86. Like with all Soviet cameras, you can tell the year of the manufacturing from the serial number. It's the first two digits, 86. This camera was built in Ukraine, about 100 kilometers from Chernobyl nuclear power plant that exploded also in year 86. So there was a lot of things going on. 86, ice hockey, some camera building and some nuclear stuff. This is probably still radioactive.
Kerrassaan erinomainen tilaisuus. Ja vielä jatkuu. Suomella mahdollisuus mennä ottelussa johtoon. Ja Suomi menee. Siinä oli sen näköistä, että pojat painavat.
I don't know if you ever own a vintage car that you need to shift the gear in a certain way, otherwise it won't get engaged, or you need to use the ignition key and just, you know, do certain tricks to start the car. And that's part of the charm. It's not that every car would be the same, but they are all individuals, and you as an owner of the car, you learn how to use it. It is exactly the same with this Kiev. In the hands of an unexperienced user, such as myself during the first couple of weeks, it was a disaster. But the more I use it, the more I learn to use it, and then it's a lot of fun. In the early 50s in East Germany, they built a camera called Pentagon 6 Practice 6, medium format SLR camera like this. And then in the early 70s, Soviets took that camera and sort of copied it. They took the lens mount and basic architecture and created a camera, Kiev 6C. And then later in the 80s they improved that camera even more. Improving in Soviet terms means that they took something away and made it a little bit worse and created the Kiev 60. Now this is supposed to have the best film transport of all of these cameras, Pentagon 6, Kiev 6Cs, and then this one. But even this one, this is really the Achilles heel of this camera, you know, the film transport. There's still a company in Ukraine that deals with these cameras. The company is called Arax, and they take old Kiev bodies and make them work as they originally should have been working. So that's an interesting company, and one of these days I'd like to get my hands on an Arax. But until then I'll shoot with my Kiev 60. So what about the features of this camera? I mean, there really is hardly any. It is bare bone manual camera. It doesn't even have a mirror lockup, or it doesn't move the mirror up, but you need to cock the shutter before it moves the mirror up. So really basic. Of course, no light metering or anything like that. Exposure times start from 1/1000th of a second, and then they all go all the way up to half a second. There's 1 second missing, like with many Soviet cameras. I don't know, that was a thing back then. It has a curtain shutter. Nothing really special about it, other than it is heavy. There are a lot of lenses available. This is a pretty nice lens mount. You got all kind of East German lenses, the Soviet lenses. This camera came with Volna 3. It is a 2.8 80mm lens, and I think it is just gorgeous. I also have a fisheye lens, Zodiac 30. And if you ever get one of these, I highly recommend these Zodiacs. These are really cool things. I made a video about this Zodiac with my Kiev 88 camera. I put the link up there so you can take a look at that if you want to. there are a few other accessories. You can use this kind of a chimney viewfinder that I prefer, but then you can also put a prism viewfinder on top of it, and it gets even bigger. And then this viewfinder is really not that cool and good, but if you prefer to do it this way, why not? So what are the pros and cons of a Kiev 60? Pros: it feels absolutely delightful. I can't explain it. I mean, but it's just every shooting situation is an occasion. It uses brute force in all of its functions. And it is a lot of fun. It makes you smile, it makes you enjoy the photo session, and it takes decent pictures. So what are the cons then? I mean, it is heavy, it is very unbalanced, it leaks light, it is clumsy, it's very noisy. Did I say it's unreliable? It has no bells, it has no whistles. It is just a piece of Soviet iron. So in all measurable aspects, it is a really lousy camera. But all the emotional points of view, it is a marvelous piece of engineering. Now, the lens, this Volna 3, is actually pretty good. It is really comparable to my Rolleiflex 2.8 or my Mamiya 2.8, with the added benefit that it focuses to 60 centimeters, which is awesome because you can really get close with this camera. And there is certain characteristics in how it draws. This Volna 3 is a masterpiece. If for nothing else, maybe you want to try this camera just because of this lens. So what do I shoot with this? I mean, I shoot in a situation that I know that I don't need to absolutely succeed, because you never know what happens. Now, every photo shooting situation with a Kiev 60 is an experience. You will get noticed. You will never know what the result is. If you are lucky, the pictures turn out extremely nice. And the excitement continues all the way to developing, because chances are the pictures are overlapping or there's nothing on the film. So it keeps you excited from the actual shooting all the way to the dark room, which is pretty cool. Now here are a few pictures I took with my Kiev. So as you can probably see, I have a love-hate relationship with this camera. With all possible measurable points of view, this is not the camera you should buy, but that is exactly why you should get one. Now, don't start your photographic journey, your film photography, or your dive into medium format with a Kiev. That would be a wrong decision, because this will first disappoint you before it excites you. So don't start with this. Get a better camera. But if you already have a decent or even good medium format camera, get yourself a Kiev. You won't be disappointed. By the way, then a pro tip about how to handle a Kiev 60. Be very careful when putting it on a table or any other surface because you might ruin the surface.
Mikkolainen, kiekko Neuvostoliiton alueella, Lehtonen, Mylnikov, Susi, maali on tyhjä, Lehtonen ohjaa maaliin, Susi syöttää, Lehtonen tekee 2-1, kultamitalijoukkue on tappiolla ja Suomen ote hopeamitaleista alkaa varmistua, 1.40 on otteluaikaa jäljellä, tunnelma on mahtava, Jarmo Myllys riemuitsee, koko Suomen joukkue riemuitsee, millä tässä nyt osaa enää tilastoja pitää, tilanne menee sen malliseksi.